Hello and welcome. My name is Pathananthivia and I'm delighted to be with you today sharing this challenge lab on how can women entrepreneurs in MENA region become more resilient and adapt and diversify their business to meet the new challenges and opportunities resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. This is the first of the two challenge labs dedicated to the economic impact of the COVID-19 for women entrepreneurs in the MENA region, and you can follow us through our social media and different platforms: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. You can also use and share our hashtag #WomenForMediterranean. Please send questions to the speakers through the platform for this panel. Allow me now to introduce you to the panelists and experts. Mrs. Sana Afouassi, founder and director of Womenpreneur Initiative. Sana is an award-winning gender expert. Women advocates in 2016, she established Womenpreneur Initiative, an organization with a community of 10,000 women across 20 countries that aims to advance women's place in the entrepreneurial scene, technological innovation, and society. For the past 6 years, Sana advised the United Nations, the European Commission, corporate institutions, and organizations on gender issues. Welcome, Sana.
Thank you so much for having me.
And Mr. David Swab is a manager of UN Women and ILO multi-country program in the Arab states promoting decent work for women. David works on supporting more gender-responsive legal and policy frameworks and fostering gender-responsive private sector that attracts, retains, and promotes women business leaders and employees. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Paz. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here with you today.
Now we open the Challenge Lab. We received many ideas, and all ideas were fantastic. Thank you very much for the amount of high-level innovation, creativity, and fresh spirit that we received through the platform. Thank you all for your valuable participation. However, and due to the limited time, we are going to present just a few of the selected ideas that we received with the help of Sana and David. Thank you both, and please, let's have a look on the very top ideas that we received during the Challenge Lab session on the conference. Sana, would you like to introduce the first initiative, We Inspire, from my dear friend Wafa and Sid Tunisi?
Yes, thank you so much. Wafa Makhlouf, she has actually identified a very good project. And I think it's very important given the context of what's happening today with the impact of COVID. Wafa, she chose the We Inspire, and it's very funny because we had a project actually at Womenpreneur called We Inspire. So it's amazing. So the project is focusing basically on providing a skill, knowledge, and skills development for women in Morocco and Tunisia who are impacted by COVID. So the program is focusing on education and training through 8 workshops for 50 women, and then there will be a selection of 25 women out of these 50 to actually participate in 50 hours of mentoring. So there is 2 phases in this project, and the program, the capacity building program, will then identify and study and provide the right tools for the specific needs of the 25 women. And the objective behind this program is that it will actually study its success from its first edition, and hopefully to use it as a reference for other editions in the future. So with no more details, I think it's a project that is innovative in terms of the context that we are living in now with the COVID. I think it's very practical as well. It's focusing on capacity building, training, education, tools. And I think at this moment, this is what women need, especially in these 2 countries.
Thank you, Sana. May I ask you a question? Because it seems that because of the COVID-19 crisis, the pandemic, they had to adapt the program and make it digital. So in your experience also, that you're working in this kind of subjects and issues, what are the main challenges that women entrepreneurs first face with digitalization?
I will tell you from our own experience at Womenpreneur during COVID, we launched an accelerator program called Generation W. And since then, we have delivered 140 activities. And actually, it facilitated so many things for women entrepreneurs. Because they have the technology, they have their computer, and it was very easy for them actually to access to information. Now, the challenge in the region is that what are the target groups that you are actually reaching with technology? At the end of the day, you are reaching a privileged target group. And we are missing the marginalized groups, including women in rural areas, including refugees, including migrant women, and so on. So I think with digitalization, it does create new opportunities, but on the other hand, it depends the inequalities that actually is behind technology. Again, it's similar that there is this divide between the urban and between the rural and between the classes. Now, in terms of using technology itself for entrepreneurs who are established, if we look at the region, most of businesses that women entrepreneurs are working on are businesses related to service, tourism, and that's unfortunately are the fields that have been impacted heavily by COVID. And in general, there are fields that are quite traditional. Now, let alone the other part of women entrepreneurs who work on social fields. So I think there is a lot of work to be done in terms of integrating this approach of innovation and this digitalization and the businesses that women are leading. But I think also that COVID could be an occasion for women entrepreneurs to integrate new innovative industries.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sana. David, please, now you have the floor. Would you like to talk a little bit about emerging advanced global learning enhanced startups from Egypt?
Thank you so much, Paz. Indeed, I chose this idea for actually many of the reasons that Sana also mentioned. It's an idea that tackles skills development, especially for women, through online tools. So that I see as a key added value, given, of course, the current situation as a result of COVID-19 and the fact that many of us are working from home or studying from home, and we do not have access to physical training centers or physical employment at this stage. And even, of course, the projections are that even when hopefully COVID-19 is gone soon, many of the business processes that we currently have online will actually be here to stay. In this sense, the value of online tools is, of course, becoming more and more key. We know that online tools are more accessible. In terms of scalability, online tools are usually very easy to scale up, and we can always reach more people benefiting in using these tools. So in this aspect, the project idea ticked the box very well. And of course, online tools and remote learning or even working can also help out balance family and work responsibilities, especially for women. However, also as Sana mentioned, all the digital tools need to consider accessibility as a potential barrier. Of course, not everybody has access to internet or the devices to access such online tools. And in many times, ownership of phones and computers is often the domain of men, especially in the Arab states. So in this sense, if not done sensitively, these digital programs can even strengthen some of the inequalities, such as income inequality, whereby online systems can be accessible mainly by people with already higher educational background, higher digital literacy and IT equipment. I also like about the idea the fact that it links skills development to startup development and also to job placement. I think this transition from skills development or education to employment, or in this case also self-employment, is very key. We see, for instance, again, in the Arab states that women and young women especially are reaching amazing educational outcomes also in the STEM fields. However, this is not really translating into increased labor force participation and increased employment of women. So this transition is very key, and more and more companies need to realize that it's not only about skills development, but it's also supporting the transition to employment or self-employment.
Thank you, David. I have a broad questions not related specifically to digital tools and women, but we know that already the region is facing, the startup ecosystem of the region is facing a lot of challenges, but what would you say there are the main challenges of the startup ecosystem taking into account now the pandemic?
Of course, I mean, access to finance is always an issue, especially for women because of some legal barriers. Of course, issues with property ownership. Many programs are trying to tackle that by, for example, providing grants. However, of course, many of these grant programs are not very sustainable in the long run. But another issue that often gets maybe forgotten or not really associated with promoting employment or self-employment is, of course, the issue of care and the immense amount of unpaid care, especially that women perform in the Arab states and, of course, elsewhere in the world. So I believe all, entrepreneurship support programs or employment programs need to tackle the issue of unpaid care as well as sort of an underlying barrier for women to actually participate in the labor market much more actively.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you. I would like now to talk about this idea initiative that both of you highlighted, and is the idea of Women Business Center from Jordan, from Talakais in Jordan. Why both of you selected this initiative? Why so innovative, let's say? Sana, would you like to
Yeah, sure.
tell me about it?
Minds think alike, I would say. Thanks to Tala Khrais, who identified this very important project. One thing I've been advocating for the past 5 years that I've been running Womenpreneur is that it's important to have spaces for women in the ecosystem. Now, if we look, the ecosystem is male-dominated in the region. Now, David has already mentioned some of the legal framework issues, access to finance, and there are other several problems. But there is also the culture and the mindset that is limiting women. I mean, sometimes you can go to certain countries where I would say the law is more flexible, but yet there are very few women entrepreneurs. I mean, Morocco is an example, Tunisia is an example. And that's very unfortunate because it's a waste of talent. And these countries, especially the poor countries, are dependent on the human capital. And therefore, there is an important work to be done in order to integrate these women. And the ecosystem systems in the region, they have failed into integrating women. Even in Tunisia, which is, I consider Tunisia one of the countries that has the most dynamic ecosystems. If we look how many women are leading innovative tech startups, you will be shocked that, I can only name them, very few of them. And for a country that is very vibrant, a country that has a lot of economic challenges, so young people are very hungry to innovate and create, and then you see that in the ecosystem scene, less than 10% of women, then there is a serious issue. And so based on my kind of interviews, meeting, working with women entrepreneurs, many of them highlighted that, they feel intimidated in the ecosystem spaces. And they feel that it would be interesting to have actually a space dedicated to the needs of women only. And actually there will be a support system, access to information that is easy, working on the legal issues. Sometimes with Womenpreneur, we had to go through doing some lobbying with some authorities in order to allow certain women to exercise certain, initiatives. So it's a lot of work that is needed and required. And also, I think these spaces could offer also recommendations to different authorities, to different key decision makers, and they can offer a friendly space where women can feel trusted, can feel, they belong to it, and they can feel that they can actually explore their talent there and find answers to their questions. That's why I find that this project really fits to the needs today. The space is a bit of a co-working, at the same time a space that will offer knowledge and support, business support. So I think having more of this type of spaces in the region would be really a great thing, because that it would support a lot of women.
Thank you, Sana. And David, what about you?
Thank you, Bas. I very much agree with Sana. Sana brought up many important points. I chose this idea for a number of reasons. On one hand, it promotes sort of a collective empowerment of women through a type of a cooperative or social enterprise model, which in Europe and in many other parts of the world has proven to be a very good way, a very good avenue to actually offer space for women. On one hand, for example, to develop skills, to gain employment, to start small businesses. And of course, also the link to providing sort of a startup incubator is a very important aspect to me in this idea. But maybe the most important point that I consider as an added value in this idea is the provision of childcare in that particular space, that particular startup incubator. Again, going back to one of my previous points that I made, that women are gaining enormous amounts of skills. They have an enormous amount of knowledge that they can offer. They are very keen on working on creating businesses, but the unpaid care work is a major barrier. So spaces that provide for good quality, accessible, and inclusive childcare are very important. And of course, it shouldn't be only the government that provides these services, but many private sector companies are realizing this more and more. And in this space, we see that part included, and that I see really as a key added value. Of course, the idea also talks about the environmental aspect, using many renewable energy elements in the functioning of the space, which is also very good to me.
Thank you. I completely agree with both of you. The only, if I may say, the only weak point that I see to the project or the idea is that, having infrastructures, renting and so is, is a very expensive budget. And who is the one who provides the infrastructure? Who is the one? Is the government or is private sector? This is the weakest point of the idea. But the rest, I completely agree with both of you. It's an excellent way of networking with businesses and women entrepreneurs and empowering them in many aspects, professionally and personally, and in terms of having the specific tools and spaces in order to grow up their businesses.
Plus, if you allow me just to kind of highlight something, I do agree with you. I mean, the project itself, it will require quite heavy resources. But I mean, whenever we talk about women issues, there's always an issue of budget. And I always say, if we really want to empower women, you should put money where your mouth is. And if we look at the region, we look how women have been marginalized from basic rights. I think the least thing that we could do, and I think this is the role of UfM, because you have a network where you actually can collaborate and bring all the governments all together to realize the importance of this kind of initiatives and to put their investment in the human capital. Women represent more than 50% of the population. They are the most educated ones, and they have quite a lot of things to give to the economy, stability, to the social stability and the political stability of the region. And I hope that through this session today, the message will be transmitted to the government and decision makers in the region, and they can actually start putting the right investment in the right people.
Absolutely. I agree and support your idea, and I'm there to support you this initiative in front of the UfM or in front of any government from the Mediterranean region. You are right. We need more investment on women's entrepreneurs and women's issues in the region. David, would you like to say something about this?
I very much agree. I also recognize that challenge of sort of the high costs of initiating such ideas. On the other hand, many governments and international agencies are actually providing many of programs like this that support establishments of such units. Of course, the longer term functioning is always a bit of a challenge. There needs to be a clear management structure. There needs to be clear management of finances, of running costs, so that the long-term sustainability is there. But again, these models have proven to be very successful in many countries around the world, and I think it's a good way to go and to work and to provide spaces for women to realize their skills and their work opportunities.
So thank you, and. Tala Hais from Jordan, thank you for your initiative, for your idea. And you have here two experts to support you, and the UfM to support you too. I don't know, we have 8 minutes left, and I don't know if we have questions and answers from the audience. We have one that is, if you can answer for both of you. It said, can the speakers provide some example of a specific support, financial, organizational setup specifically for women-led businesses in order to navigate COVID-19? So specific measures or policies to go through this COVID pandemic period. Sana, would you like to?
I'm not really understanding the question very
the
well.
question is if you know specific examples on policies to support women entrepreneurs to
overcome the COVID situation.
That's it.
Well, actually, Womanpreneur is working on one, and it should be published in February. So basically, we have been working since March on understanding the impact of COVID on women in 3 countries, Algeria, Egypt, and Lebanon. And we've been kind of working closely with women entrepreneurs there to understand the government response, what the ecosystem has put in place to support them, and what kind of recommendations they have for decision makers and key actors in the ecosystem to put in place to support women entrepreneurs impacted by COVID. So it is still a work in progress. But in general, in the region, I mean, it is, at least from our side, I haven't heard of really concrete policy that is put in place to support women directly. I think the countries are still undergoing a serious crisis that is just beyond a health crisis. I mean, some countries are having political issues, others economic issues. And I think, again, when we have crisis, women issues come at the below list of priorities. And again, we are hearing that, we are kind of emphasizing on economy, on health. So that's why I cannot actually give examples. I know that UN, Women Arabia, for instance, has put in place so many different webinars and so many different activities online, and also some guidelines. They are given a general overview, but not concrete kind of, answers to this question.
Thank you, Sana. David, we have another question from the audience that I think, honestly, I will not want to finish this session without mentioning it, because it's so important for the MENA region. And it said, what about women who are working in informal economics. So what about them? Women in informal sector.
Thank you, Paz. That's a very good question, a very important question, of course, in not only in the Arab states, but in the whole Mediterranean region. Of course, we see that women, or more women, tend to work in the informal sector than men. And of course, people in general working in the informal sector have hard time accessing social safety nets. And currently we see that, of course, these jobs in the informal sector are being impacted by the different COVID-19 issues very much. Many people working, for example, as domestic workers, cleaners, suddenly do not have a job and do not have access to any unemployment benefits. So, of course, any of the programs that are put in place by governments or the private sector or by civil society should be considering the needs of people working in the informal sector. I know, for example, some countries are, in their fiscal stimulus packages and support programs for businesses are actually considering also the access barriers that people working in the informal economy have. And they are providing support to them as well. And in that process, they also help them formalize their business, which I think is the right way. And we, of course, shouldn't be forgetting about women as well as men working in the informal sector during this time.
Thank you, David. Sana, would you like to say something about this topic? It's also very much related to rural areas and women in the rural areas.
To be honest with you, Paz, I think it will take me hours to answer this question because it's a serious problem in the region. I mean, most of women in the region who work in informal economy, they are actually what we call survivor entrepreneurs. So basically, they're trying to survive on very little to save and feed their families. I think the most important step to really support these women is to have a serious political will and a serious legislation on how to provide security for these people, social health. Like, for instance, now with the COVID, these people are starving. And now they're becoming like poor instead of, survival entrepreneurs. I think the international community can do a lot about this by working directly with local organizations who are working directly with these people who have an understanding of their needs. I think it's very important to kind of have this different relations with different actors, not only from the top with the government, but also with local organizations, women organizations, also the private sector in the region. They can contribute heavily to really support this unpaid and informal women and entrepreneurs and just survivors.
Thank you. Thank you very much to both of you, to David, to Sana. It was a super pleasure to be here with you sharing this panel. I think we have just 1 minute left. Would you like to say in 30 seconds something to summarize the panel, the session, the lab? David?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It has been an excellent discussion. Thank you also to Sana for excellent points and ideas. I would just also like to thank the audience and the ones who have submitted the ideas that we were weighing on. I think it's clear that the issues around women's economic empowerment are very high on everybody's agenda, especially now, of course, during COVID-19. Just to maybe highlight one point that I made several times today, that we cannot really be talking about addressing the issues of women's economic empowerment without looking into some of the underlying elements, such as unpaid care, social norms, but also linking, for example, domestic violence. And there, it's not only the governments that, of course, have a role to play, but it's also the private sector, it's the civil society. So it really takes, a holistic overall approach to be addressing these issues. And we are very much looking forward to the conversation in the next few days as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. 30 seconds, Sana. We cannot hear you.
Sorry, thank you so much. Well, I'm very impressed with myself because I've been very short in my statements. Usually I am very talkative. But what I would like to say is thank you so much for offering this space and this discussion. And thank you, David, for your amazing statements. I think if we want to solve women issues, we need to work with women themselves. And I think it's important more than ever to really consider women as an investment, not only for economic progress, but for social equalities, and because it's a human right before anything else. And as women, as representative of Womenpreneur, this is what we have been doing for the past 5 years, and I'm very happy and delighted to collaborate with whoever is interested in really supporting women in the MENA region. Thank you.
So thank you all for sharing these projects and answering the challenge questions for this lab. Remember that the selected ideas and good practices will be featured through our platform and social media using the hashtag #WomenForMediterranean and also in the UfM press release and conference report, and will be published on the UfM website. I remind you that you can also participate in the co-creation lab tomorrow around the question how to prevent and address violence against women. And you have the Women Entrepreneurs Forum this afternoon about women challenges and opportunities during the pandemic and a story of leadership by Z Tunisia and Morocco. Thank you all for your valuable participation. Be responsible, stay safe, and all the best. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.